I was going to do a live stream, but we had such a good weekend. We had a very action-packed weekend with 6 of the middlemen coming and spending time with us. That man, it was hard to get out of having a good time with them mode and get back into work mode. And with Jack being deployed and getting him ready, well, that's the way it was. So I felt better about it, and we are back in the saddle again today. Goodness, we had a big weekend, a long weekend, a wonderful weekend. It was a great shakedown cruise for, got my microphone, of things to come. And, you know, Mrs. W and I, you know, we talked about, kind of had a little after action report, you know, what would we do different? What would we do the same? You know, to be honest, you know, it just went so well. And, you know, I really attribute that to just the high quality people, just some of the most courteous, wonderful men. It just exceeded my expectations. Everyone, I think everyone had a really good time. It was quite amazing, and we are so encouraged to move forward. You know, this kind of gave us a taste of what it's like, and really, I would like to spend the rest of my life, you know, the next 20, 40, 30, maybe 40, 20, 30 years, doing something very similar, being around like-minded folks, encouraging one another. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Was that not one of the very first mottos that we used from the Old Testament when I first started the channel? Absolutely fabulous. Mr. Overton is in the house here with the chats. He posted something for me. One of our we have hate followers, people who, hate watchers, I guess they call them. Dude says that I went off the rails a while ago, but he's still going. And I like Overton's response. It really sums it up. Rails only bring you to a place someone else wanted you to go. Very, very insightful indeed. So just to give you a little bit of recap, so we opened up our home to the middlemen, which are a group of elite moderators. Many of them you know behind the scenes, to come and spend some time with us. Folks came a long ways from Ohio, East Coast, Florida man. North Carolina is represented very strongly and has had a wonderful time. And it only helped to confirm that I was wise in giving West Coast status to our North Carolina friends. They brought gifts as well as SOE. We just had such a good time, but a couple in particular I wanted to show you. I will no longer be repping the Spyderco bushcraft knife. It has been replaced. I hate to see it go, not really, but I found something better. The Minutemen from North Carolina brought, look at this. I don't know what it is about North Carolina, but they sure do know how to make a good knife. This is my new official bushcraft knife. You will be seeing it. I need to use it for a while. I've been using it heavily. I've actually enjoyed it so much. It's quite a bit smaller and lighter than my my Spyderco bushcraft knife, which I found a little bit too heavy to wear as a sheath knife, but this one I've been wearing around full time. It is a beauty. Primitive woodsman. Isn't that something? Boy, I really appreciated that. Got some nice posters. Also, we had a huge care package from our friends over at SOE, John, and thank you, John, sent a whole bunch of really good gear. I've been spreading the love, sharing that with some of the war band, and they were super excited. I gave Mr. Brian a piece today. My manservant, Jariah, he got a tool bag. Man, we are just absolutely loving that stuff. And I heard, I don't know for sure, but I have heard through the grapevine that John might be making a custom bag for us for the next radio drop, which could be anytime soon. Evan probably, as far as I know, got all those 3 radio kits out. To those of you who have ordered, of course, the original ones all went out some time ago, but we have really been enjoying that. And to tell you the truth, it was so cool to have the guys show up and they all had the radios and to have a common frequency. We really use those radios a lot. There were times that we went together on motor rides. There were times where we split up and some guys went and some guys stayed, and we were able to communicate and stay in touch. One time I hit the radio and we were 11 miles away and we picked up Overton, who had stayed behind back in the cabin, which was pretty amazing. So that was really fun to be able to use that so effectively essentially 7 guys that were complete strangers to show up and to do that was super cool. Also, goodness, we had our friend, the battle chemist. He really pulled out the stops. He brought some serious hardware. You probably saw the shorts. I was able to knock off 4 of the firearms that I always wanted to fire. Overton's 338 Lapua. The battle chemist brought a 44 Magnum and a Desert Eagle, as well as the 50 BMG and Overton's 500 Smith & Wesson. That was quite a day. You probably saw some of those. The only one I didn't get was the 338, but it was all, we had a really great time. A really, really great time. Let's see here. We have a super chat from Mr. Daniel Sumney. Shout out to you, Daniel. Excuse me. Daniel asks, do you think wars are designed to kill young men? You know, I hadn't thought about that indirectly. I guess I've never been posed with that particular question. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. You know, why? You're going to ask why. I guess that my initial thought when just thinking on that is that there are a very small group of people who are really run things. You know, ultimately, the spider is behind them. The adversary, the prince of this world, the Lucifer, the devil, has been given dominion over this realm, over this flat earth. Now, God only lets him go so far, but he can't do it all himself. He needs to enlist confederates. And there are people willing and unwilling that do his bidding. Those people, that very small group, whoever they may be, are greatly outnumbered by the masses of the people. And it wouldn't surprise me if it isn't in the cards through pandemic, through disease, through engineered war, to cull the slave class so that they don't become too powerful. We know without a doubt that the adversary and his confederates does not want us to get together, men. Start getting together and talking. Because when we do that, we can change history. But if we can keep men isolated, thinking that they're alone, thinking that they're friendless, build a society that makes it illegal or immoral for them to ever get together in smoking clubs or activities. Really, if you think about it in this culture, there's very few places that you can go as a man and meet with other men. You know, really, the only one that is still kind of around is the gym, but even that has been taken over by the women. Women cannot stand to have men doing their own things. They always have to interject themselves. They always want to get involved. I don't know what it is. They're daughters of Eve. It's just the way that they are. God made them that way. I'm not disparaging anyone. It's just the way that they are. But I think it's important that we create these spaces. We create the opportunities and put ourselves, you might have to put yourself out there a little bit. I know a lot of guys don't want to, I don't want to impose, I don't want to do this. You need to put yourself out there, and you need to meet like-minded men, and you start making these spaces possible. You know, and we started that last weekend in a small way that will hopefully grow into something. Hopefully inspire you as well, because it's important. It's important to have male friends and to push and to challenge one another. Just a perfect example, I've always told you guys, it's better if you can surround yourself with people that are more intelligent, more capable, wealthier, more accomplished than yourself. That's the best thing that you can do, because they'll bring you up to their level. Whereas the inverse is also true. If you hang around with lowlifes, with men of low character, lazy, complaining, unaccomplished, they'll drag you down. You may think you're going to lift them up, but it's rarely the case. Case in point, we had some brand new motorcycle riders. A big portion of the weekend was spent riding moto. I had a couple extra, and I was able to borrow a couple from my friend and my neighbor, and we had bikes for everyone. And to see these men from the very first day to the fourth day, it was astonishing. It was astonishing. We pushed them, they pushed themselves. We took them places a little bit over some of their comfort zones, and it was just incredible at the fourth day when I was at the very back of the pack, how much faster and more confident everyone was. It was just amazing to see in just a short period of time. You know, and I'm not saying that I'm some amazing guru. I'm just saying that in that particular thing, you know, I ride all the time. I'm in my backyard, right? It was amazing to see, and that was just a perfect example. There are men that came that had much greater skill sets than I did. For example, Mr. Overton put on a clinic for us. A lot of us shooters had varying levels of training, somewhat contradictory. You know, and you don't know what you don't know. This morning, and Brian came out with us, Overton put on such a good course with grip and how to properly shoot a pistol. It was amazing, things I'd never heard before. Brian and I were talking about it as we got into the river and practicing on the airsoft. It's like, wow, this changes everything. Just knowing that one bit of information. Overton brought us up to his level, and I would never have been able to know that or have that experience had we not been able to be together. So what good is it to have someone that's doesn't know more than you? You know, get your ego out of it. We're not about egos. We're about bettering ourselves. And if we can have access to someone or can share knowledge or skills or ability to bring us up to their level, I mean, what more could you hope for? I mean, it really is the best thing. Wonderful. We have a super chat from Mr. Overton, speaking of which. Wars at least leave you cool natural tattoos. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And some good stories. You know, George S. Patton, I'm fond of saying, he said, compared to war, all other forms of human endeavor pale in comparison. That's really where innovation comes. I mean, when you are fighting for your life, you know, the decisions you make, the gear that you choose, the manufacturing that's done. I mean, you cut out all the BS. You get right to what matters. And there's a lot of good innovation that's come out of war for sure. I don't know if it offsets the tragedy, but this is the world that we live in. Thank you, Mr. Overton. And Chronic and Ironic is in the house. Shout out to you. Chronic and Ironic, we have a super chat. The Crimean War in 1853. Shout out to public schooling. The Crimean War in 1853 shows this is true. More young British men died of disease and famine caused by incompetence aristocratic officer class. Yeah, that was, boy, goodness, those poor men. And it's not just them. The men have suffered under bad leadership for a long time, but particular in that war, as well as World War I, leadership and commands could be purchased. If you were in the aristocracy, if you were wealthy, you know, that was something you could purchase your way into a position of leadership over men, and many times they weren't qualified. They didn't always bring leaders up through the ranks, and they still don't do it today, and there's still going to be nepotism. That's always been the case, and the soldiers always pay the price for that. They always pay the price for that. Absolutely. I have something to share with you, a new milestone. I wasn't sure when the middlemen came out, I wasn't sure if they were going to join us in our morning river plunges. You know, the water's cold, 45, 44. I've been going in every day. I haven't missed a day since July 5th. And when I talked about it with the war band, you know, I said, well, you know, we're not going to stop. We've put our hand to this plow. We're going to continue to do it. And we invited anyone that wanted to join us. Guess how many came? Well, they all did. They all did. So that was very encouraging, and it was a great experience. But a milestone, I just got out of my longest ever soak, 21 minutes. 21 minutes in the river, and I could have stayed in for 30, but I was running a little bit tight on the stream. But it just goes to show that you can train yourself to get stronger and to get better and to deal with that cold. You can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I started at 3. We've worked up to 6. We did 10 one time, and I was going to jump in there for 5. And I thought, well, if I could do 5, I could do 10. I thought if I could do 10, I could do 20. And when I hit 20, I said, well, I could do one more, right? and I did 21. If you would have told me that I would be able to do that in that cold water, and if you don't think it's cold, just ask the middlemen. They'll tell you it is certainly cold. Pretty astonishing. Pretty astonishing. The Georgia Crazy Cajun is in the house. Shout out to you, brother. I wish you could have been here with us. You would have dug it the most. How are you holding up with Jack being out on the fire line? Well, Jack got the call last night. They pushed it 12 hours. He is leaving today, I think he said about 4:30. 4:30, and they have to be at the staging at their headquarters. He's with a private contracting company that's about an hour from here. They're going to camp tonight in their tents at the facility, and they're leaving super early tomorrow morning and going to drive straight through to Montana. So they had a little bit of reprieve. So we got to have breakfast together. Jack, very fortunately, is going, this will be his first deployment, going with his best friend. They both went through Red Card training together. They both went through Sawyer training together. And it was a wonderful evening yesterday. Had the boys in the shop, and they had their red bags pretty much packed. I had them open them all up, set up their tents. I told them, set up your tent now, know how to do it, because you probably have to do this in the dark, and you don't want to learn how to set up your tent in the dark when you're tired and you're in country, so to speak, right? So we pulled all that out, double checked everything, inflated all the thermarest, make sure that everything worked, went over the clothing. I gave them some last minute pointers, some tips, and they're ready to go. Got their boots greased, and they're just kind of chilling right now. So they've been hanging out together today and just kind of getting ready, and we'll be saying our goodbyes here after the live stream, and those boys will be off. Those boys will absolutely be off. I wish I could have, well, I could have, but you know, it just wasn't anyone's business but ours. Just to see those young men taking this big step, you know, it is a big step for them. Both of them are, you know, they're seniors in high school, both still live at home. This is the first time that they'll be away from their parents, and going and really stepping into the man's world, where they'll have to sink or swim. I won't be able to be there to pick them up. I won't be able to be there to bail them out. They're going to have to go forward on their own merits, and it was a wonderful evening. It was a wonderful evening to be able to talk and to be able to speak with the boys on an equal level, man to man. You know, my work is done, really. I mean, I've put everything I can put into Jack, and now he needs to go forward and to use it. And it was, you know, just something changed yesterday as we were getting gear together and visiting and telling old stories about past experiences and things they might want to consider, and you know that sort of thing. It was, even though they haven't done anything yet, but they will. And when Jack comes back, you know, I would imagine he'd probably be gone a month. We might not see him all summer. He could be out the whole summer, depending on what the fire season does. But but at minimum or maximum would be 21 days. And Mrs. W and I said, well, if he works 21 days straight on the Montana fires, they have to give him a couple days off. You have to have a little bit of R&R before they can redeploy you. And if that's the case, we will pack up and we will go down there and get ourselves a room and go spend a couple days with him. I can't wait to be able to hear the stories and share the experience. And I imagine he's going to come back a very different. Well, he's going to come back a man. He's going to come back a man. It's a bittersweet thing, isn't it? But Crazy Cajun, we're doing well. They're good kids. They're in good shape. They're well equipped. They've got good boots, and I know the guy that runs the contract company they work for. He has a great reputation. He's got a great experience. He's got good team leaders, and I think they'll be in good hands. Good equipment, and I think it's going to be wonderful. I don't know what fire they're going to be on yet. They don't even know. They'll go down there to Montana. They will stage, and then they will be assigned wherever that may be. And as soon as I find that out, Mrs. W and I will be foremost experts on exactly where that fire is, what's going on, and it'll be a particular hobby of mine. Hopefully, maybe Mr. Evan from Radio Made Easy can help us get the frequencies that they may be on. You know, maybe we could even monitor some of that stuff over the internet if that's being broadcast, and I think there might be some avenues for that. So that would be kind of cool as well. But thank you, Cajun, for that. I appreciate that. Yep, I appreciate that. We have a live chat from Mr. Matthew. Matthew writes, "Are you immune to cold? Congrats." No, I'm not immune to cold. I'll tell you, I was just in the river, 44 degrees for 21 minutes, as I said, and I'd say at 5, 4 or 5, I was getting pretty cold, and I settled in, controlled my breathing, focused on what I was doing. It was a very interesting experience to be in that cold water for that long. I've never done it that long. The longest I ever did was a shower one time for 10 minutes, and that was, I suffered terribly the whole time. I never got relaxed. It just was awful. But this, man, I just got into a zone. I felt like I could stay in there for a half hour without a doubt. I almost thought, well, I might do a members only stream. I'll just set up my phone right there. I'll get in the water, and there'll be no cheating that. I'll be in the water. I'll try 30 minutes, and I could answer questions and see. But I was astonished. I was absolutely astonished. But when I got out, it did take a long time to get warmed up. I went over and sat in the sun, direct sun, for about 10 minutes. But it's pretty hot here. I've been working out here and sweating all day, and I just am cool as a cucumber right now from being in that cold water for so long. But I don't know, I wouldn't say that, Matthew. I'm not going to say it's ever easy to get in. We got in this morning. Jack joined us again, and that's Jack's 4th day. He got in every day with us when the middlemen, or maybe his 5th day, when the middlemen were here. And he said last night, "Oh, I'll be joining you." And he brought his friend down, who got in for the first time, who was not having as good a time as we were, I assure you. But he did it. Shout out to him. So I was proud of Jack. We have a live chat from Edgar Burleyman. Shout out to Edgar. Edgar writes, "Jumping in the river or lake in the summer morning isn't hard to me." Well, you're more manly than the rest of us. What can I say? What temperature your river is, I don't know. And talk is cheap, but show some receipts. I can assure you that it is not easy. Not here. Not when the water is 44 degrees. We're not talking centigrade here. We don't use the filthy metric system. It's cold, man. I don't care what you say. It's cold. Talk is cheap, man. I believe nothing of what I hear on the internet. And so you may say this, it doesn't mean anything to me. It's no more relevant than the sound of a refrigerator running. You show me. Oh, I have a little video to share with you. Mr. Jason Barr, excuse me, Mr. Barr has a little show for us. This is Mr. Overton's 338 Lapua, and it is legit. Here we go. I'm going to back it up. This is a short video. There's Jack. Did I not hit play? Nothing but the best production, gentlemen. Oh, man, what a sweet. What a sweet. And I think this is maybe me. One more. That sounds suppressed. Must be mine. That must have been Overton's. I don't remember. I'll tell you, that 338 Lapua that Mr. Overton brought out, it's pretty much the high watermark of precision rifles. I've never seen anything like it. The recoil on that, I've heard that that's a big cartridge. Let's not get it twisted there. But the recoil on that, it was more gentle and easier to shoot, softer to shoot, nicer to shoot than my 6.5. And the trigger, I had never felt a trigger like that. The trigger, I think he said, was 4 ounces. It completely surprised me when I squeezed it. I was just resting my finger on it to start to squeeze, and it tapped off. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. We have a $20 super chat from our friends at Special Operations Equipment, SOE. I'll tell you, gentlemen, SOE, I made a very happy member of the warband today. My friend Brian, the middleman, you know, you met him. He's one of the best guys. He's one of my absolutely my best friends. I gifted him the small tool pouch with all that John put together for us, with all of the dividers. I wish you could have seen his face, man. He was and is the happiest man in the world. I thank you for that, man. It was fun to be able to share that. I gave one of the big tool bags. I kept one for myself for my camera equipment. That is now my official camera bag, and I will do a video on that, show you how I worked that out. That's changed my life. I had all my stuff dumped into a Nanook, like a Pelican type of box, chaos and breaking stuff and no organization. It has literally changed my life having that SOE gear. I go around with 2 bags. I got one right here. You want to know one of my favorites? This is a little gem right here. Fully decked out in woodlands, which Mr. Brian told me is God's plaid. God's plaid. Look at this little guy. Is that not just a simple duffel bag? I was showing this to Mr. Brian this morning, and he took a shine to this one for sure. I was not giving it up though. I would have liked to have given it to him, but I only had one, so I'm going to keep it myself. He said, what's nice with these little bags is they force you not to carry too much stuff, that you don't overload them. There's a lot of truth to that. You know, I've always said, just because a bag, you can put more in a bag doesn't mean that you should. Leave some, let it breathe, let it breathe. But this is, I mean, they're all my favorites. How could I pick a favorite between them? But the large tool bag, man, that is really where it's at. The big duffel, I use that now. With the big duffel, I put my Pendleton. So we come down in the morning, the warband comes down and we get in the water. I put my Pendleton blankets in there for afterwards, my hoodie, my alpaca jacket, my shorts, sandals, the Bluetooth speaker so we can play our Nordic music to raise the blood, to warm the blood as we enter into the river's cold, frigid embrace. I love this stuff. I love it. Love it. I was up when the middleman brought that package, and I showed some of that on the live stream. That night I was up till nearly midnight, laying everything out, and reorganizing and pulling stuff out of my inferior bags. Shout out to SOE. Packing more orders for FUPAs, shipping in the morning. There you go. There you go. I don't know if that's for customers or if that's for, you know, I should have grabbed it. I'm going to be doing some more, I'm going to be doing some dedicated videos of the SOE gear that I like. Not because John has asked me to. There is no expectation. Actually, every time I've spoken with John, he's made it very clear. He's like, look, I'm not sending you this stuff in hopes that you're going to do a review. And I'm just sending it as a thank you. Nothing more than that. And I'll say the same thing. I'm not doing gear reviews out of any sort of sense of obligation to John because he never made me feel that way. That was something, you know what? Good men, men of character, they love to share, to give things. It's better to give than to receive. And that just is the outflowing of a kind heart. It's nothing more. It's a man that's tight-fisted, that's selfish, that wants to keep everything for himself. That represents his heart and his character. So it's not about that. I do videos on what I'm beholden to no man. I do videos on what I want to do videos on. And if I do SOE videos or I do videos on knives that were given to me, I'm not expecting anything back from that. If I never received another piece of equipment from SOE, I would still support them. I think it's wonderful. Evan and John are good friends. Evan from Radio Made Easy. You know, he's one of the best guys I've ever worked with, if not the best guy. His reputation is stellar, and the time he spends with customers, and I'm so proud to be a part that he's our radio guy, and I'm so proud of what he put together and what he's got out to you guys with the 3 radio kit. I'm looking forward to stuff in the future. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful community, and I really am, we're trying to juggle stuff. I'm really hoping to get out there in October. It's going to be a stretch. It's going to be tight for us. I can't guarantee it, but we're trying, and we should have an answer pretty soon. So Thank you guys. Thank you for making such awesome stuff. We have a member message from our friend Old Heart. Good to see you, brother. Old Heart writes, my 4-year-old asked if I was at Wranglerstar's house. I know when I first, my autocorrect, when I picked that name, Wranglerstar, it would always autocorrect to Ringo Starr. And it hasn't done that for a long time, so I guess I've made my own way in the world. It stopped suggesting that. Had a great weekend pushing and testing myself. Thanks the Lord. Thank the Lord for war band members were unscathed. Yeah, we had a good time, and everybody pushed themselves for sure. There were days that were light, and there were days that were hard, and it was wonderful. Couple crashes, nothing major. We almost had a serious crash. Our beloved Brian, he went down pretty hard. And it was by God's grace, he walked away from that unscathed and continued the ride. And got right back on that saddle, and everything turned out good. But boy, it was scary, very scary. Thank you, Old Heart. It was a wonderful weekend, wasn't it? We have a member message from Stubby. Stubby writes, I wish that I was 18 again and going where I've never been. Prayers. And up for Jack and his buddy. I know, man, I am so proud of those boys. I don't even have the words. I remember what it was like going to my first fire. I remember everything about it. I remember every single day. I knew immediately, as soon as I got on the fire camp, that this is what I've been looking for. This is something that I wanted to do. I thought that it was in structural firefighting. I was a career firefighter at the time, doing structural, and that was the department I worked with contracted their Type 6 engines out to wildland, and I got trained through the department, and I got deployed and went out. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anything about it, really. And as soon as my first day, when I smelled the smoke, and I saw the smoke column, and the gear and the tools and the guys and all of that, I'm like, this is what I wanted to do. This is it. This is what I've been looking for. I never did really like the structural side of it, but the wildland was for me. So to see them and the excitement and a little bit of trepidation when they got the call, and I could see Jack's nervousness, and I told him, have it ready, get your gear ready, wear your boots, all that. But it's like, oh yeah, how it is when your dad's telling you stuff, right? But when that call came in and it got real, I watched his mind shift. It changed, and now he was listening. Now he was ready to listen, and now he was getting serious about it. Man, what an adventure! What an adventure! How many young men in our society, even guys in their 30s and 40s, have never stepped into manhood? That still don't know. I've still never made that transition. It's a crying shame to not have a father or a community that creates an environment where the boy knows, I am no longer a boy. I am now a man. I have now taken that step. If you don't have a distinct moment in your life where you take that step from boyhood into manhood, you'll always be struggling. For me, it was when I was 12 years old. In our Jewish friends, they have the boy's bar mitzvah. That is, I believe, at age 12. That is when the boy ceases to become as a child and steps into manhood. And for me, that was the same age. It was 12. That was when I was able to carry my own hunting rifle with my granddad and go deer and elk hunting for the very first time and shoot my own animal. That was a big thing. That's when I left my home, and where I used to have to stay behind or stay in camp when the men went out. Now I was with the men, and now I was in the tent and hearing the stories, and I was participating, and I was shouldering the load, and I was doing the work that the men were. And that's a very important thing to have, and that's something that we need to create, especially as fathers. You don't have to go be a wildland firefighter, but you need to create something that challenges your boys. Plan a trip, do a motorcycle adventure, climb a mountain, do something that challenges them, that puts them in a slight amount of risk, controlled risk. But it's the father's job to manage that and to provide something or an environment where they think that they could be in physical harm, but you know the whole time that you would be able to be there to pick up the slack, but hopefully you won't have to. That's so important, gentlemen. Thank you, Stubby. Boy, I hear you, man. I hear you. We have a super chat from Nerdski. Thank you, very generous of you. Hello from the far south coast, NSW, Australia. If there was no USA, and I could only live in one country for the rest of, if there was no US, here's a good question. He's saying if there was no USA and I had to choose a country to live in for the rest of my life, where would I reside? I would reside in New Zealand. You know New Zealand. Australia, that big island off the coast of New Zealand. Yeah, New Zealand. I think New Zealand. I haven't been there, but I've really enjoyed the people from New Zealand, as well as I like they have great forests. They have a really interesting climate. I think that would be nice. I think that's where they shot The Lord of the Rings. And judging from what I saw on that, it must be an absolutely beautiful place. Australia is big, you know, and they always talk about the interior and the rock formations and, you know, how cool everything is. You know, Mrs. W, and I've heard the same thing from many people, Mrs. W, and especially folks that have come from the United States where we have like Yosemite and our national parks and Zion, that if you've seen what the USA has, and then you go there and an Australian shows you, oh, look at the rock formation, it's kind of, it doesn't compare. So, yeah, I'd probably choose New Zealand. New Zealand, maybe, or a Nordic country, the north of Sweden, perhaps. I could live up there. So I would say that the north of Sweden or New Zealand would be probably my two picks. We have a super chat from Philip Franklin. Shout out to you, Philip. Thank you for your generosity and brand new member. Philip writes, if you like the 338 LM, look into the CGS, man, I don't know how to pronounce, Hecate suppressor. You may find something amazing. My 338 LM is currently being built. Yeah, I believe Mr. Overton, I asked him about that. I said, goodness, this is a very soft, incredibly soft shooting rifle. May have something to do with the fact that it weighs 39 pounds. Would that be enhanced by a suppressor? I don't know. Yeah, I'll bet that's amazing. What an amazing, if you get that report knocked down, the sound of that report and that light recoil, I mean, that is pure death, that machine right there. I mean, what's it good to, out 4,000 feet or better, or some ridiculous thing? Not with me behind it, but with better men. Mr. Brandon Vaughn, $20 super chat. Thank you, brother. Shout out to you. Brandon says, a brother just came against me today, been friends for years, and now he's calling me a hypocrite or a false prophet. That's a very strong allegation that friends should not be throwing around lightly. You know, the worst punishment in the New Testament, in God's book, is reserved for two people, or two types of people. And that is the liar and the false prophet. That tells you that the Almighty takes a dim view on that. Now we know Lucifer, the adversary, that old devil and Satan, is the father of lies. We get the impression, as we read through the Old Testament and the book of Job, that lies did not exist in God's kingdom until Lucifer invented them. If you're the father of something, that means you created it. And we're told that he created that. So the ultimate punishment, the fiery pit, which will destroy all those that are not saved in the blood of Christ, is reserved for primarily the liar and the false prophet. The false prophet, liar is pretty self-explanatory. God hates a liar. The false prophet is someone that represents the gospel, but deceives people. So to be called that's very bad. He goes on to say, I'm 26, trying to go to Bible college, detail boats, but the sin is rampant here. God pushes me. Is welding a good trade? Yeah, you know, I don't know. I do not think that you need to go to seminary or to a Bible college to be called to be a soldier for Christ. I would say that just the opposite might be the case. I think it would be better for you to get your education through your own study and prayer and the guidance from the Holy Spirit than putting preconceived notions and the wisdom of man into your head that you're only going to have to overcome. I reject that. Just because man has set up a particular set of rules that you need to have this certificate, you need to have this paperwork, you need to have this pedigree from this alleged Christian university, which we find out are very far from Christian. I was very much aware of that. You know how difficult it is to try to find a conservative, faith-based, Bible-believing college? We're looking for one for our son. And they may profess to have that in name, but what I see on campus is very far from that. So I don't know what the situation is or what you have done in his eyes that would, where he would think that he has the ability or the authority from God to call you a liar and a false prophet. Those are very serious allegations. And as far as, unless I saw repentance, if you are innocent, and unless I saw repentance from him and a serious apology to God and to you, then that man is no longer my friend. No longer my friend. Mr. Shane. We have a super chat from Shane. Shane writes, my good friend swims in the North Sea off the coast of England all year. It's cold. I went in once, never again. So well done, you guys. I can only imagine. I have not been in that sea, but I can imagine it's cold. Goodness, all year. Well, I'm not going to make I'm not going to brag or boast that I'm going to be doing it all year. As I'm fond of saying, will I be in there this winter when it's 31 degrees, the water, and there's snow on the ground? I don't know. But I will be in there tomorrow. Shout out to you, Shane. Thank you for your generosity. And Mr. Jerry K. Goodness, a $20 super chat. Thank you, brother. Jerry K. Jerry K. writes, first time super chatting and lurking. Listening since the UC, I don't know what that means, mentioned you. Oh, the Undead Chronic. Shout out to the Undead Chronic. Absolutely. The Undead Chronic mentioned you. Yeah, and look at the number. His channel's been canceled so many times. I don't know how many times. I don't know how to read Roman numerals. Thank you for the message you bring, and Evan for the radio kit. I got mine in. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Jerry, and I'm so happy to hear. I have not heard one negative report from anyone. I've heard actually just the opposite, that it exceeded their expectation, that it was a great value. And you know, we did the math on this. We showed if you were to put all that kit together, you wouldn't be able to do it for what Evan made that available for us. Not to mention all the added benefits of the quick start guide and the awesome SOE bag, you know, and the unique patch. That's one off. Those are very limited. I have two. Thank you, Jerry. I'm glad to hear you received your kit. And if you ever come out here, you can turn to Proho too, like we did with the middlemen, and we will use those radios. Mr. Barr. Good to see Mr. Jason Barr. A proper North Carolina gentleman. Now those North Carolina gentlemen out here are very well mannered. But they were pushing me to eat grits, and we don't do grits out here. I don't know what a grit is, but I do know that I don't want one. So don't be bringing your grits. Mr. Jason Barr writes, a good man obtaineth favor of the Lord, but a man of wicked devices will he condemn. Yeah, Proverbs 12:2. Leave it up to Mr. Jar. Mr. Barr is a man of the cloth, a man of the book, as we like to say. He knows his Bible. I think North Carolina man and Southern man in particular have a pretty good basis in the Bible. It is a little more, I think there's a little bit more importance and emphasis put on the Holy Book in the Southern families for sure. Thank you, Mr. Barr. We're missing you guys. We missed you guys this morning. We missed you guys yesterday. We wish you could have been in the river with us. That was a great experience. and my friend, the Battle Chemist. The Battle Chemist brought that big 50 BMG that I showed in yesterday's short and was very generous, supplied ammunition for all of the group. Everyone that wanted to shoot got to shoot it. That was a pretty cool thing to knock off the bucket list. And what a wonderful gentleman. A fellow Pacific Northwest man and a very brave man. He got on that, he was a brand new motorcycle rider, and we took him on a pretty big ride, 120 miles over some difficult ground, and he hung in there and did a great job. It only crashed one time. The Battle Chemist writes, "This last weekend was so great. As Handy Mike said, it was like a bunch of old friends getting back together after years apart, and I felt the same." Yeah, it was. It was very much like that. You and Mrs. W's generosity and gracious hospitality were beyond appropriate. They were Proho, and thank you. You know, I'll tell you guys the truth. I didn't mention this to them. I was not going to mention it. But when we knew the guys were coming out, you know, we had made arrangements. We didn't provide every meal, but we wanted to provide a couple meals so we could eat together. We never intended to have anyone in our home. When we entered into this endeavor, Mrs. W and I, we've done this a few times before. We decided it's very important to maintain our personal space, our personal home, from anything else that we're doing. We wanted to have a place where we could get together and eat, and I figured, we could eat down at the campsite, or maybe we'll go out to a restaurant or something, but we never intended to ever have anyone in our home. We wanted to maintain that privacy. But we knew after the second night, you know, and this was Mrs. W, we had such a warm connection, and we felt like we were old friends with everyone here, and everyone was so well behaved and so polite and so thoughtful that there was just no question. And of course, we opened up our home, and we never intended to do that. Mrs. W, and shout out to her, she put a lot of work in and made some nice meals, and it was an absolute blessing to have these gentlemen sitting at my dining room table in my own home. And we were able to do it twice, and then we had a burger cookout the next night on the patio, and we sat the night around the fire and shared stories, and it just warms my heart. I mean, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it now. Just the kindness and the generosity of the men that came, the generosity of their time that they spent. Some of them had to get on airplanes. The generosity of the families, the wives and the children that went without while their fathers could leave and to come and to hang out with this strange internet dude. It was absolutely magic, and it was a great experience, and it will be something that I will always, always remember very fondly. Thank you, Battle Chemist. Mr. Overton. We have a super chat from Mr. Overton. Mr. Overton writes, and Mr. Overton, I have to say, is a relatively new motorcyclist as well, and a big man. He's a big dude, and he sits on top of that 650, that big Honda, and that man can ride. That man can absolutely ride. I will say that I was not riding at that level as early as he is. A natural athlete, obviously. Mr. Overton writes, and a Battle Chemist is a good friend to have. Some receipts aren't wise to share on the record. There you have it. There you have it. Well, you need to take care of your Battle Chemist. When we did the big ride together, of course, the Battle Chemist was with us, and there was many of the men were kind of like guardian angels around here. I would imagine, like in the old fictitious battlefields, how you protect your wizard in the back, make sure that he doesn't get harmed. You put some strong men around him because he's such a valuable asset to the army. You have to take care of your Battle Chemist, as I absolutely agree. Mr. Build It Nation, we have a super chat. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your generosity. South Dakota representing. Shout out to you. I think I misspoke and said Mount Rushmore was in North Dakota, but it is not. I was told it's in South Dakota. That's an austere environment. You have to be tough. You either have to be tough or stupid to live in South Dakota, I've been told. But thank you, brother. Thank you for your generosity. And Mr. Shane, good to see you back. We got the cows bringing the flies. My good friend swims most days all year round in the North Sea off the coast of England. I went in one spring. I was blue for hours. So well done, you guys. Yeah, You know it's cold over there. You just look at what London or England, man. Look at the clothing that they wear. And what do you think of when you think of London or England? You think of cold, damp. You know how damp and cold it is when you have near an ocean. It may not be freezing, but just the moisture, it just gets in your bones. The tweed and the wool and the thick sweaters, that tells you all you need to know about a climate from the clothing that is generated from or required to live in it. I don't know if I'll ever make my way back to England. I went to London, and it was hateful, definitely in decline. I was told that real Englishmen do not live in London. Real Englishmen live in the country. And if you really want to see England, you need to get out in the country. So if I ever did, I would definitely get out the country. I would stay away from London. And the food, I've had some bad food because I've been to Sweden. But I'll tell you, Sweden's got nothing on London. Goodness. We have a member message from Andrew Hanwell. Shout out to you and a 5-month member. Andrew writes, getting married in April. I'm going to give you the Charlie Brown face, right? You know, not happy, not sad. We'll get to the crux here. What is your best advice for a happy marriage? She wants to be a homemaker and won't let me cook her clean. Well, that's a good start. It sounds like you may have a trad con, but you know, beloved, they do put their best foot forward during the engagement phase. Let us not be deceived. Don't get caught up in the romance of it all, in the fairy tale nonsense. Look at it very practically. As my dad always said, you can learn to love anyone. Get the emotion out of it, look at it. I'm not a big fan of getting married to Western women. If you could figure out a way to do it and not sign a state marriage certificate and do not involve the state in your marriage, some people consider that to be wise. I would probably consider myself to be in that camp. If not, if you have any assets, I would strongly look at a prenuptial agreement. The problem is, if she's been to college, if her mother, look at her mother. Is her mother a feminist? How does her mother treat her father? She can cook and clean and check off all the boxes that she's supposed to. But look at her mother. Is her mother a trad con? Because if her mother's not a trad con, her mother is a crazy leftist, that means she is as well. The apple does not fall far from the tree. And that Jezebel spirit, that spirit of stiff-necked spirit, that spirit of rebellion, is passed down from mother to daughter. These are multi-generational. Those of us that are people of the book or followers of the way understand what a generational curse is. A generational curse is something that you are saddled with that has been handed down to you from previous generations, previous family members. It is possible if someone has suffered with demonic possession in your ancient line, it is possible that spirit can afflict children, grandchildren on down the line. It could be something that you're saddled with. If you have a particular stubborn stronghold in your life, I would even go so far as to say, let's say pornography, a spirit of lust. You may be dealing with this may be a spiritual thing going on in your life. You may be dealing with something that you've been saddled with by a previous family member. This is not nonsense. This is real life. This is real stuff. And sometimes the only way to overcome these things is through Christ and through a lot of prayer and fasting and other people praying for you as well. I don't know exactly where I fall on the whole exorcism thing. I have no question that demonic possession is rampant in this country, in the whole world, always has been. Do you think just because we think that we're now sophisticated and we know all things and the ancients were fools, do you think, look at how much trouble demonic possession was in Christ's ministry? It was a big part of his ministry. Are we to think today we're exempt from that? Would it be a crazy thing to say that a lot of this mental illness, I'm not saying all, you know, I'm sure people suffer from legitimate mental illness, but would it be a crazy thing to say that mental illness, or some people that are afflicted with this, could be demonic possession? I mean, of course it is. Of course it is. It could be something that you're dealing with, even something that you did not bring into your own life. These generational curses are real. With these women, these mothers, look at her mother. If her mother is not a tradcon, I would be very, very suspicious, because that's what she will be. So I hope it works out for you, but hope is never a very good plan. Sorry to rain on your parade. I just want you to be safe. I want you to make good decisions. Mr. Philip Franklin, another super chat. Thank you, Mr. Philip. Philip writes, the CGS Hecate will make the 338 hearing safe with supersonic loads. Goodness, that's quite a suppressor. To put it simply, it's a suppressor inside of a suppressor. My 338 custom build is coming in at around 10 pounds. 10 pounds, goodness. That's absolutely amazing. You should get together with Overton. I'll bet you two would have a lot to talk about. Well, I hope to see a picture of that when you get it done. That sounds like a once in a lifetime. It sounds like a dream gun. Thank you, Philip. We have a super chat from Marty Preps. Shout out to you, Marty. Marty says, have you seen the 119 monastery? They tell the story as it should. I don't know what that means. I don't know anything about it. Again, you know, if this is a Christian movement or a group of men that have a particular insight that God may be working with, I'm open. I'm not going to be closed-minded to anything. I'm gonna expect that God's truth, in whatever form that He chooses to bestow us with it, is going to come from non-traditional methods, non-traditional places, and unconventional people. And if we're dogmatic and we think, well, the only way I could accept or find truth from God is going to be through my pastor, you know, I don't think that that's wise. I think you need to be careful and know your Bible, test the scriptures, test every new doctrine or new insight or anything anyone tells you according to what God's book says. And if it is in harmony with the scriptures, then maybe you will benefit from it. But if in any way it is opposed to God's scriptures of the 66, then reject it. It is of no value. So I would be, if you could get me a link, if someone could get that to me, I could take a look at it. I would be happy to do that, but I can't speak to it because I don't know what that means. Gentlemen, the thing that Christ warned us about over and over again, He took great pains to warn us about this, was to not let us not be deceived. He told us in the end times, the tricks of the devil, the adversary, that old devil and Satan, the fallen one, are going to be so compelling that if God didn't shorten His reign, didn't shorten the final days, that even God's very elect would be deceived. Now, what is God's elect? That's His remnant. Those are the people that remain faithful even to the very end. God's most faithful devout. His soldiers. The ones that He loves and trusts the most. The ones that He has sealed and set aside to be with Him forever in the kingdom. You and me, beloved. Heirs to the inheritance. You and me. Even us. So compelling will the tricks and the deceits of the devil in the end times be that if God didn't step in and intervene, that even we would be deceived. His most loyal soldiers. We have to be careful. Do not be prideful. Do not think that you've arrived or think that you're above temptation. We need to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. You never arrive. Minute by minute. You conquer minute by minute. You don't say, I'm going to do this, thus, and so tomorrow. You just get through the next minute and maybe the next hour and trust God. Because without Him, without the guidance of His Holy Spirit, we're lost. There are none righteous, no, not one. But we have the promise I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. That's all things. You know, God is not like man that he should lie. When he says that we can do all things, that means there are no limitations, beloved. There's nothing. There's no cold water. There's no risk. There's no act of courage. There's no act of faith that isn't within your grasp if you tap into the source, the power, into the Holy Spirit. But I of myself can do what? Can do nothing. Mr. Andre, Mr. Andre Peace, a $20 super chat. Thank you. Very generous of you. Thank you so much. He says, have you heard of David Straight, the freedom fighter? And I have not. I have not. I have, you know, when my TikTok account got nuked, I'm convinced I had 2 strikes and I must have got a third one. The first strike I got on TikTok was for showing how to use a drip torch. It was a dangerous incendiary device or destructive device or something like that. I was showing how to, you know, I lit it up and there was, you know, the fire. I got a strike for that. And then the next strike I got on TikTok was for the video that I cut my finger with the 9400 Benchmade. I got a second strike for that. And the third strike I got, I'm assuming, because they never tell you, but I'm assuming was I think I showed an ACOG, not a rifle, but an ACOG, and that was that. After that, they nuked my channel. After that, what I found out, what I've realized since then, is that having that channel, which it was coming up on 700,000 subscribers or whatever, I don't know, whatever they do on there. Having that channel gone was a great blessing, because that is very addictive. The TikTok, if you're on it, you can easily burn hours in the evening on that. And I kind of justified it because I was uploading content on it. Like, well, of course I've got to, you know, this and YouTube are my big sites. I've got to be on it, know what's going on. What I didn't realize, once that was gone, and I had no reason, it was kind of a hobby for me. You know, it was just something, I wanted to see if I could get it to 1 million. It was never that big of a deal. Once that was gone, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really feel any remorse, but I haven't been on it since. And since I didn't have an account that I was actively uploading on, you know, and scrolling on, I haven't opened TikTok since then. And my life has improved dramatically. I didn't realize how insidious that is, and just how it affects your mood, how it affects your outlook on the world, even your happiness. So your peace and contentment, I think would probably be a better way to put it, very negatively. There's something very wicked about that. I didn't see when I was on it, that I can see clearly now. And once I weaned myself off, or I just cold turkeyed off of that, I also found that I have absolutely zero interest of following U.S. or U.S. politics whatsoever, which is something I've always done. I've always been very, very interested in U.S. politics and followed it very closely. I look at what's going on in D.C., and, you know, even like there's even some commentators YouTubers that I follow for a long time, like Styx, you know, who does commentary on U.S. politics. I don't watch his videos anymore, not because he doesn't do a good job, I think he does, but because I just could not care less. I mean, I couldn't care less. I would never vote for a national election again. We don't have any representation. It's pointless. It is all a dog and pony show. It's an absolute farce. I will vote in local elections. I will be involved in local politics, school board, that sort of thing, levies. I think we have an obligation to do that. But when it comes to, like, if you're still waiting to vote for Donald Trump or your favorite Democrat, I mean, it's time to let that go. It's just theater. It's always been theater. We actually thought we had representation. We don't. So it's foolish to even participate in it whatsoever. Stick to what, maybe stay involved at your state level. Outside of that, it's ridiculous. It's pointless. There's a mono party. There's one party They've made you think that you can make a difference. They made you think that your vote counts. I don't think it matters. I could not care less. I am so disinterested in anything that comes out of Washington, anything that comes out of SCOTUS. It's pointless. It's absolutely pointless. It's time to live your life, beloved. Get right with God and just start living. Enjoy your family. Move your family to a place where you can be closer to God's country, to be removed from the chaos of the cities, and enjoy your life. As King Solomon said, after everything I've experienced, and he experienced everything, more than you could even imagine, he said, I have concluded that there's nothing more important, there's nothing better a man can hope to achieve than to eat and to drink, to enjoy his woman, and to be with his friends. There you have it. The wisest man that ever lived. That was his conclusion after a lifetime of living like a rock star. But you don't read your Old Testament, and you don't read the instructions from the fathers, and therefore you fall into a pit over and over again, as do I. I'm preaching to myself, obviously. Mr. Back Creek Homestead, shout out to you in a $10 super chat. Back Creek writes, thank you for the encouragement, or for your encouraging content. God bless. Well, God bless you as well. Thank you for supporting us with your time and for the super chat as well. It's always good to see Back Creek Homestead in the chat. Mr. Andrew Hanwell. Andrew's been with us for 2 months. We have a $5 super chat. Andrew writes, she still lives with both parents, so that we're getting an update here on the alleged TradCon. She still lives with both parents, has a great relationship with mom and dad, special needs teacher, and dental hygienist. No debt of any kind. That sounds encouraging. Sounds encouraging. Does she have social media? Is she posting pictures of herself online? Is she trying to get attention from other men? That's another one. Look into that. But I know, here's the thing, man. Proho has a blind spot when it comes to when he gets his teeth into something where he wants something. And I don't care if it's a new truck or a TradCon or a bass boat or whatever. Once he resolves resolves in his mind that that's what he wants, you can't talk any sense into him. He's already made the decision, and every decision that he makes is going to contribute to him achieving that end result. Right? So that's the thing. There's why the good book tells us that there's safety in a multitude of counselors. Because if you have counselors or friends or trusted allies, your war band, the middlemen, they will be your objectivity. They're not all wrapped up. They don't have their emotions in it. They can tell you, you know, I don't think it's a good idea for you to go drop 90 grand on that bass boat. I know you want it. I know you have justified it, and you can give us 1,000 reasons why you should go buy it. But we also noticed that you buy that bass boat, your wife's going to leave you. Right? So there's safety in a multitude of counselors. Don't be so prideful as to think that a friend that's maybe telling you something you don't want to hear, that he's wrong. You know, many times they're doing it out of love. So move forward carefully. But if she has a teaching certificate, you know, she's been to college, she's a dental special needs teacher, dental hygienist, you know, I don't know, that's probably more of like a 2-year type of thing, something you could maybe do at a local community college. But if she's done into major universities with a bachelor's degree, and you know the university, you know, that is very dangerous. College educated women divorce about 90% of the time. They have the highest divorce rate. Women with 4 years degrees or more advanced. It's very dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Well, it's dangerous because they will wreck you financially when you're just at a point, you know, 40s or 50s or even earlier, and they'll take your children from you, and then they'll saddle you with lifetime or alimony and child support. And they will turn your kids, many times they'll turn your kids against you, and they will become absolute poison in your life. I would not marry a Western woman unless I found a unicorn. And you know what they say about unicorns? Have you ever seen one? Because I haven't. They don't make them like Mrs. W so much anymore. Mr. Member, we have a member, Mr. We have a member message from Be Good Broadcast. He's been a member with us for 6 months. Day 210 of cold showers. Shout out to you, brother. That takes some courage. I'll tell you. Well, I don't know what your source water temperature is. What is your source water temperature? Are you Florida man? Because that's not an accomplishment. That's called just having a regular shower out here. Assuming that the water is below 50 degrees, North Idaho. There you have it. I have my answer. 210. I'll tell you, Be Good. The shower is harder than the river. I just got out of that river. I did 6 minutes this morning with the war band, and I did 21 minutes in here just before the stream by myself. And I can tell you, that 21 minutes was way, way easier than the 10 minutes I did in the cold shower. So you are obviously right now. I started when you started over the winter, and it was brutal. Thank you. Yeah. I lost my way a little bit over after I had the hernia surgery, and I was not supposed to take the cold showers, and then I got out of it, and I fell down. But I have not missed a day since July 5th. July 5th to this day, I've been in at least once a day, and most days 2, 3, and sometimes even 4 times a day, because I've been working down here. Shout out to you, brother. Goodness, man, that's quite an accomplishment. Back Creek Homestead, welcome back. If you come see Joe Salatin, swing by, and I'll fix y'all some grits and biscuits and gravy and then fresh eggs. I don't want no grits, man. I don't want that. I don't want Southern man's food. I don't want catfish. I don't want opossum. I don't want roadkill. I don't want none of that. You come out here, and I'll do the cooking. But I will take the biscuits. I did have to admit to North Carolina man that North Carolina biscuits. I was down there. Mrs. W and I were down there a few years ago. North Carolina biscuits are the finest biscuits I ever had, bar none. Full stop. Joel is only a few miles from here. Yep, Joel Salatin down there at Polyface Farms. Man, what a coup for John that he got Joe Salatin to come out there and speak. I have met Joe Salatin multiple occasions. Joe Salatin and I were keynote speakers for the Mother Earth News Fair years ago. He was the big draw. He was the number one guy, and I got to interview him. I got to sit down and talk with him on multiple occasions. And he's a cool dude. You know what's interesting? I think I heard this. I saw him do this, but I also heard this from John over at SOE. John was telling me that I was listening to this in the background, so I may have the details wrong. So I'm not lying. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I'll give you the gist of it. Wherever it was, John from SOE was watching this, or someone had told him this, that Joe Salatin was sitting outside as the people were coming in to hear him speak. And he was visiting with them, and he was asking them questions, etc. And when he was asked about this, he said, the reason why I do this is because I don't know what I'm going to talk about until I meet the people. When I meet the people and I hear what their questions are, I hear what they're doing, I hear what they want, what their concerns are, then I speak to what they want to hear. That's extraordinary, isn't it? To be able to do that? Because I don't know how many of you have been up in front of a big crowd to speak for an hour, but I've done it. And it's one of the most fearful things I've ever done in my life. The first time I had to do it at Mother Earth News Fair, I almost chickened out. It was the night before, and Mrs. W encouraged me and gave me the strength and encouragement to get in front of those people. I was so afraid. I was so afraid to do it. After doing it a couple times, I'm not afraid of it anymore. But I've stood in front of 600 people that have come all over the country and spoke for an hour, and what I had was, kind of prearranged. I knew what I was going to say, but to be able to do what he's doing and to be able to just come up with something off the top of your head is absolutely extraordinary. And he's an incredible speaker, and his books are amazing as well. Shout out to Joe Salatin at Polyface Farms. He is definitely Proho. We have a super chat, a live chat from Mr. Brady B. Brady writes, how do you feel about Midwest Man? I like Midwest Man. We'll get that out of the way. I do like Midwest Man. Hardworking, honest, high trust, usually a family man. But man, brother, you got to get your weight under control. Midwest Man has gotten so big that he needs to get his fitness in check. So you get Midwest Man, you get your fitness in check. Drop a few pounds, get out there and do some road work and get your conditioning back a little bit. Then we'll talk about you getting West Coast status. But until you get that weight under control, back to the end of the line. NS, brand new member, shout out to you. Thank you, brother. We have a super chat. Hi, Cody. I stumbled across your Amazon live stream and it was amazing. Any more planned in the future? Yeah, we're going to do one a month. We took notes. That was a really fun stream. If you guys have the opportunity to drop in and to do that, that's a stream that Mrs. W and I will do. I think we're planning on doing it once a month, maybe twice a month, where we'll do it together. And the last one was really good. We shot it over in the tent, and that's where I picked some of my favorite things. It was forestry equipment, tools, stuff that I've really been enjoying and using a lot down here this summer, putting the camp together and such. Talking about themes. So some themes came up that we're kicking around for the next one is putting together a preparedness kit, a bailout kit, which not for me. I'm not a big fan of bailing out. I think you should stay at home and defend your castle. But the kit that I'm talking about is, let's say that you work an hour from home. It would be more of a get home kit. A get home kit, and I'd love to work with John and get his recommendation from SOE. If anyone maybe can get a message to John, I could maybe pre-plan this a little bit and I could buy the right bag, whatever he recommends. But I would like to have his recommendation on a bag that you could have in the car that would give you the get home stuff. Now this would be for your wife and for yourself. So let's say your wife works, or let's say your wife is a stay-at-home mom and she's raising the kids. And let's say she was in the city running errands. Maybe she's a half hour, maybe she's 45 minutes away, and something happened. An EMP, a hurricane, a flood, where she couldn't drive and you couldn't get to her. The things that she would need to get home, to get safe home to you and to communicate with you as well. And that would also include any children that she's got on her hip. That's what I've done for Mrs. W. It's called the Get Home bag. And the same for you. As a man, it's a little bit different. You're at work. Maybe you work in a high rise. There are precautions. There are things you can do so that you don't have to jump out of a window to your death. It sounds crazy. There are ways to break the glass. There are ways to get down safe. Suitable shoes. If you are a place where you have to wear shoes that wouldn't be appropriate to walk, loafers, that sort of thing, having some good walking shoes. If you're there's a lot that goes into it. So I would like to have John's recommendation for that bag, and then I could pick the items and share the items that I put together in mine. Mrs. W also, and it has to change winter and summer. What you need in the winter time if she's walking home or has to find her way home in December is very different than July. So those need to rotate seasonally as well. But we're kind of kicking around maybe that idea. But once I make the announcement, you should come over and join us. It's very interesting to have Mrs. W's perspective. Her counsel is very important to me, and it's a rare treat to have access to her as well. She's a very wise woman, a very intelligent woman as well, and very compassionate. We have a super chat from Martin. Shout out to you, Martin. I think Martin. London is not England. Yes, I learned that. I had a very multicultural experience, in London. And England is not the UK. Scotland has been my favorite place to go since I was a child. I've heard that. Great people, great scenery, and great food. Haggis, jellied eel, blood pudding, goodness. Spotted dick, toad in the hole. Oh, I think those are English, aren't they? Case in point. But the rain is not as cold as that stream. Yeah, I'll bet it's not. I'll bet it's not. Well, I am an Oregon man. I'm not afraid of rain. I actually like it. Thank you. I'll tell you, Scotland, Ireland, and Japan are probably up in our top 3 or 4 of places we'd like to visit. Be Good Broadcast and member, a $20 super chat. Thank you, brother. Very generous of you. My DIY grounded bed solution we have a solution here. I might have to incorporate this. Mine didn't work out very well. My DIY grounded bed solution, about 10 feet, is about 10 feet of 1/8-inch stripped out copper wire, okay? Grounded in the outlet, and then I just run it under my pillow and grab onto it when I sleep. It's not perfect, but it's easy and it works. Yeah, I do that too. I kind of sleep that similar way. You could definitely do that. Yeah, and gentlemen, one thing while I'm on topic, it just is on top of mind here. One thing you need to train yourself to do at night when you're sleeping is you got to stop breathing through your mouth. It's very unhealthy to breathe through your mouth. God has designed us to breathe through our nose. We didn't have, our boomer parents didn't know nothing, didn't teach us nothing, so we're learning this a little bit late. So we're learning this together. But you can train yourself to stop being a mouth breather at night very simply by taping your mouth shut. Get some of that white medical tape and just cut a strip and tape from here down across. It won't take you but 2 or 3 nights. It took me 2 nights to train myself to stop breathing through my mouth. If you're waking up in the middle of the night, waking up in the morning with a dry mouth, you're a mouth breather. It causes tooth decay. It is very unhealthy. The air that you breathe in, you're not able to actively or very effectively extract the oxygen because it hasn't been humidified, it hasn't been brought to the proper temperature. As I said before, you have the surface area of your sinuses is quite big, the size of your fist. And when you take the air in through your nose, it humidifies it. If it's dry, if it's too wet, it takes moisture out of it. And it also makes it the optimum temperature so that when it hits the bronchial area, or your lungs, that it is properly humidified and climate controlled. And it's the proper formula so that your lungs can extract the maximum amount of air from it. So train yourself to do that, and I did it, and a lot of friends and a lot of people that I've turned on to are doing this and having good results. Mr. Philip Franklin, and new member, welcome. Shout out to you. Thank you for being so generous, Philip. Philip writes, the late Dr. Greg L. Banson taught seminary at Southern California Center for Christian Studies, and in his last will and testament, he made all of his courses available for free at the Apologia Studios. Well, there's a resource for you. Apologia Studios. Goodness. Overton coming in with a mic drop. Brother, you don't have to do that. I sure do appreciate that, though. $100 super chat. Mr. Overton. Overton writes, they've been saying Republicans will never win again for decades. In my youthful ignorance, I thought they will always be wrong because they have been thus far. They were right. Just should have said no opposing party will ever win again. It's all to be ignored. Yeah, and Mr. Overton is of the same mind as I am. We've both come to that conclusion. I like him. He came to it a lot younger. He's a lot. The thing is, when you meet Overton, you'll think that he's much older than he is. He's actually a relatively young man. But some of those guys just have an old soul. You know, they just have a wisdom. You don't have to be old. I'm going to quote my favorite Judas Priest song from Rob Halford, The Sodomite. I didn't know he was a sodomite when I had his poster on my wall. I should have known better. I'm always the last to know. But the Judas Priest song says you don't have to be old to be wise, and that's very true. It's not always the case, rarely the case, but you do not have to be old to be wise, and Overton falls into that. Yeah, it's pointless, John. Just like a woman who has betrayed you, turn your back on her and do not entertain her. Don't answer her phone calls. Don't open your house to her. Don't listen to her pleas and her begging. Just ignore her. She is for the streets. Thank you, Mr. Overton. Well said. Well said. JDM Sector, shout out to you. What's your opinion on carrying a monoscope for EDC? You know, I've got one. I've used them. I grew up using field glasses. My granddad had 3 things in his truck, always. I watched him. We used to go get firewood. His first truck that I remember was about, I'm going to guess here, it was probably about a 1964, 65 Ford 2-wheel drive Robin Egg Blue pickup, and we used to go up and get firewood. And was always carried 3. There was more things he carried, but the things I remember as a child, he loved to know what the altitude was. He always wanted to know what the elevation was, and he had the old school altimeter mounted on. I wish I had that. Man, I don't know whatever happened to it. My thieving, hateful family that ravaged his possessions like a carrion birds probably took it and threw it away. Fortunately, I got a few handful of things that mean so much to me. He had that altimeter in all of his vehicles, and I loved that. He'd recalibrate it when we'd leave, and we'd go up in the mountains to go cut firewood. He was a mechanic. He'd supplement his income a little bit by cutting and selling firewood, and I would go help. You know, this was when I was just a little kid, 5, 6, and go up in the snow and cut firewood, and I was more of a hindrance than anything else, but I remember that altitude, and he always had his Army canteen from World War II. You know, the aluminum ones with a Bakelite cap and the green in the U.S. and the insulation on it. The smell of it, I have the canteen. I'll show it to you sometime. The smell of it is a very powerful memory to me of all the times we would go. And I remember we would go up to the same place to cut firewood, and there was a creek that we would cross. There was a bridge there, just beautiful, pristine water right down off the glacier, and he named that Cody's Creek. And we would go down there, and we would fill up the canteen with the best water in the whole world. Granddad, we would drink that water. He's like, oh, he just loved going up there because he could fill up 2 canteens and bring it home of water from Cody's Creek, the best water in the world. That altimeter and that old U.S. Army canteen. And what was the other thing? I lost my train of thought here. There was one other thing. Oh, his field glasses. He called them field glasses, binoculars. He was an outdoorsman. He was a hunter, and he loved wildlife and loved animals and loved to, as he called, glass the hillside. We'd sit down there for hours, hunting season, and just sit on a rock together and look and glass the hillside, looking for the deer, looking for the elk, looking for a big bull or a big buck that we would go down there and try to harvest. Field glasses are big, clumsy, and it sounds nice to have a binocular that would make sense, but I never have really got into it. I know some dudes like them. It solves a lot of problems because you can put them in your pocket. You know, the middlemen have thrown one up there for you. You can see, you know, that's kind of what it is. If that works for you, that's fine, but I never have really warmed up to them. I have a couple of them. I put them in packs, but I don't know if I've ever used one. But I haven't really had to use one either, so I think that they're fine. I think if you can do binoculars, that's definitely better. Mr. Andrew Hanwell, shout out to you, Andrew. Andrew writes, No social media. I won't allow it. Doing my best to keep the blinders off. God bless. Yeah, I agree with you. I live on the internet. On YouTube and such. Of course, this is where we're at today. But I am the same way. That was really eye-opening to me of how addictive and how damaging TikTok is just to your general well-being. I think I don't know if there's a spiritual component to it. I don't know if it's just, there's so much psychology into the algorithm design to get you to feel a certain way. You know, TikTok, for what the kids see, TikTok in China is very different than what our kids see. Our kids see degeneracy and sodomites and all of that sort of thing. Their children, they're limited to it. They can only watch it a very short amount of time, you know, and I'm not saying China's the answer. But they see kids that are accomplished musicians, that are doing things, you know, great academic minds, and that sort of thing, just the opposite. So they're feeding their children with the same website that they're poisoning ours with. We have a member message from Survival Sky. Shout out to you, Survival. Survival writes, thank you for the wonderful weekend. Was an honor to see the West Coast for the first time. Yes, same to you. Thank you, brother. And Mr. Survival Sky. Good to see Survival Sky back in the house. Thank you for a wonderful weekend. Was an honor to see the West. Oh, I just read that. Goodness. Losing my mind. These flies are making me crazy. We're gonna have to move over to the tent until they move these cows out of the southern pasture here. Mr. Justin Runderos, shout out to you, brother. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your super chat. He says, hey Cody, should I wait for a new single radio kit or purchase the one that is available right now on Radio Made Easy? Wait a little bit. Wait a little bit. The middlemen have got the patch, the artwork. It's going to be unique. If you order that now, you're not going to get the Proho patch, and you're going to want that. They're pretty cool, man. What they've got going on is super cool. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. I've learned to stay in my lane. They do their thing over there, and when they deem it's time for me to have the knowledge or the information, then I will have it, and I will share it with you straight away. Hang on a little bit. It won't be long. I've heard the drop will be in August, and then you'll get, you know, there's always going to be a little added benefit, is our goal when Evan puts together the Proho radio kits. And if you don't wait for that, then you're not going to be able to enjoy that. So I kind of have an idea what's going on. I don't know the final tally what it's going to be, but it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So just hang on a little bit, brother. And they're working on that behind the scenes. Evan's busier than a one-arm paper hanger. We have one final super chat, and then Mr. Brian and I are going to go on a moto ride, and we're going to go up to a high lake, and we're going to go get in that water. It'll be my third dip of the day. Mr. Roman, shout out to you, brother. Thank you for your generosity. Roman writes, hello from Missouri, and wherever I may be, 22-year-old flatbed trucker, owner-operator, good for you. If you were to start from the beginning, 18 to 20 years of age, what would your blueprint be to become a Proho? Do I have my current brain? Do I have my current brain? I'm going to assume that I have my current brain. If I didn't have my current brain, I would be out doing something stupid. I'd be out in those streets, being a Chad on the dating sites. I know that about myself. But knowing what I do now, I would, first thing I would do is I would establish my education. I would give myself a good education. I would probably, I would want to have a classical education. I would put a lot of emphasis on that. Not for the degree, not for the boasting, but I would want to know, if I was in a group, no matter what group of people I was around, I would want to be able to hang. I would want to be able to follow along understand the historical or cultural references, and to be able to read and to understand and work with people. I might consider a law degree, because a law degree, I wouldn't want to be an attorney, but a law degree, I've seen it firsthand. A law degree they teach you how to think. And what we're not taught to think in our public education system. To be able to look at things from more than one side. That would make a person very well-rounded, provided you didn't get your ego up in it and now think you're better than other people. But specifically doing this, not for a degree, but just so you were a classical education, I would want that. I think that would be important. Next, I would burn through that. I may not even graduate. I might even just get to the point where I felt like I had competency. I'm like, okay, I got what I needed out of this. I'm not interested in the degree, because Proho's not going to be, he's not going to be working by the hour. He's going to be doing his own thing. Secondly, I would have myself a rock solid trade of some sort. Electrician, welding, a skill, machinist, something blue collar, something that was very specialized and very much in demand, that I may or may not do, but could fall back on and have that understanding. I would also go to work. I would do fire for a couple years. For summers, I would do fire while I was in college, to have that experience, to learn how to work with other people, under a command structure, organization, and just to get along with folks from very diverse backgrounds. You know, to keep you humble down there on the fire digging trench. You may be in law school, but you go out there on the fire line on a Type 1 hand crew, and no one cares about your fancy education. Everyone's pulling together. You know, that would make a very well-rounded person. Once I had all that in place, and I was, I had the education, then I would decide, what do you want to do? Do I want to be married, or do I want to be a bachelor? And then I would act accordingly there. And then I would also decide, well, where do I want to live? Do I want to live in America, or do I want to live in Europe? Do I want to live in Sweden? Do I want to live in Scandinavia? Whatever. Decide on that, and then I would go about getting land, and make your fortune. You know, start your business, whatever that is, and then ultimately get land. Get to the point where, you know, with my current brain, I would be able to, at about 35, maybe 40, I would be independently wealthy. I mean, not crazy wealthy, but wealthy enough where I didn't have to work anymore. FU money, so to speak, where you're not beholden to anyone. And then I would go find a young woman with a good family, traditional values, and I would have children. And I would be able to be there. I want to have some sort of business or something that a purpose. I don't want to just sit around and do nothing, but it would be on my own terms, in my own shop, whatever, in the internet business. And I would provide for my family and be with my family all the time and homeschool and live out my days. That's what I would do. I would follow King Solomon's advice. Good question, Roman. Very good question. Mr. Overton, I got your message. I will call you right after the stream. Thank you, beloved. Thank you for your time, for hanging out, supporting us. We will see you tomorrow, Lord willing. Please keep my family in your prayers. Special thanks to the middlemen that sacrificed and came out, and all of the love and kindness. It was a wonderful experience. Very wonderful experience. Very little I would change about the whole thing. Keep us in your prayers. We'll see you on tomorrow's stream.